Pash, and I'll be talking about my mom, which is the artist for this exhibition. She's been a painter for most of her life. Actually, her very first job was doing designs on platters, and then she moved on to painting murals and on furniture, as well as walls and stairs even. She's been doing mural painting and traveling around Northern Europe for a long time in her past, and now she has settled down to make abstract and minimalistic paintings on canvas using acrylic paint. And she used to do interior furniture design because the philosophy about furniture and about a living space being beautiful is that it's really important for people to see her for their living space to be gorgeous, to make them happy and cope when they're in hard times. When they come back from a hard day, they can come home to a pretty kitchen with pretty flowers or maybe a pattern that they really like. And I think that's a really nice thing to have, and you should really appreciate it about her. Most of her work really goes around this philosophy about how people really need art to not only inspire them, but make them happy and feel better about themselves and about life. And I really think that's a lovely thing about her, and I really appreciate it. In fact, most of her paintings use acrylic paint and a marbling technique with water and acrylic paint on canvas. She splashes it on a surface and uses different materials to make interesting textures. And I think it's pretty genius. So the very first painting on our list is called Purple Spirit. This one is a pretty personal one to her because she actually really likes this one. It's supposed to represent herself as a person. It uses pretty purples and yellows. I think the composition of the sun makes it pretty pop pretty well, and I think it's very interesting. The very first thing that you probably notice when looking at this is about the waterfall and the sun. They really, these kind of pieces that are abstract and minimalistic really leave it to the person and their imagination. And so I think I will keep it pretty short on these paintings to make your imagination take the rest. The next painting on our list is actually inspired by a photo of me we took. It's only my silhouette is showing in that photo, but you can see the composition is inspired by a silhouette. This one is supposed to represent freedom, and it uses splashes of colors with textures. If you see at the bottom, there's different water lines dripping, and I think it makes for a very interesting color composition with dynamic shapes and splashes. It almost looks very mysterious. I think it's lovely. The next one on our list is pretty interesting and quirky. This painting is called Life on Mars. It's pretty fictional, of course, and I think the composition is extremely dynamic with it being a circle and surrounding a sun. The sun has a very warm and charming light, while around it, it's surrounded with colder purples that's supposed to represent how important the sun is to us. I think this is a pretty interesting concept to explore, and I appreciated that some artists really go out of their comfort zone and explore different concepts and ideas in their own way. And the next one is supposed to represent solitude. This lonely tree is almost looking at its own reflection as it has this interesting symmetry. Now, one thing about this painting is that it doesn't use it uses colder colors, but most of it is warmer tones. And I think that's a necessity, because being alone isn't just loneliness and bad, it's a necessity for a person. Sometimes there are times when a person needs to be alone in solitude, and that's why this piece doesn't use cold and harsh colors. They are mostly friendly tones, and the yellow in the middle really makes it really guides your eye towards the tree. I think it's extremely dynamic, and I appreciate it. The next one is If You Wouldn't read the title, is about after the storm, I would call it, definitely. It uses colder tones, but it definitely adds a different feel to it, because even though the colors are cold, the feel after a storm is that it's not bad. It goes, something better is after that. So I think that you might really think of it as colder tones and harsh colors, but really it's just after the storm, everything is going to be okay. This is certainly a more abstract piece, and I'm not gonna give more and leave it to your imagination. Some people see a person under the water, which I think is quite interesting, and some people see the Eiffel Tower, which is why it's called Rain in Paris. Now, the other piece is, I actually have the honor to name this one, which I'm pretty honored about. This is a very atmospheric piece. It has harsh contrast between the washed out yellows and the very cold purplish blue. I think the composition of this piece is extremely dynamic, with the waterfall being in the middle and the light shining from the top. It makes it more mysterious and cold, a bit harsh, but I really like it about the piece. I think it's very powerful, and you can definitely see a lot of emotions in it, such as sadness or maybe even grief. The next one is actually the opposite of grief. I think it's extremely bubbly and chaotic. It has these tropical trees which give off a more warm and cozy feeling, almost like you're in a vacation. The moon or the sun, which is the lighting point of this, definitely adds a bit more clarity to the chaos in this piece, and you can see the almost the creativity explosion in this one, and it's definitely something to look at. Now, the other one, which is also another one that I got to name, but I get to name a lot of these in translating. This one is actually a sold one already, and it has this dynamic wave which kind of wraps around this fictional castle. And I really appreciate the transparency between the wave going through the top of the castle. I know that it can be hard to paint. I have no idea how she did it with acrylics. It's extremely dynamic with the composition. I really enjoy the lighting being from a bit to the side, and it gives it a really nice glow and look to it. I think the wave enveloping the castle is also extremely dynamic because it gives it a more warmer and charming feeling, which I appreciate. The next one on the list is the swamp, which is another piece a bit more bubbly and warm. This is a depiction of a rising sun and waters. The plants almost seem like they're raising their heads towards the sun, as if they're rising together. And I think the blue colors with cyan and yellow and a little bit of that pink add a little bit of warmth, and I really enjoy the emotion in this painting. The next one on the list as well is Invigorated Rain. It's extremely quite aggressive with the harsh strokes. The inspiration for this one was actually also rain, which happens to be a bit of a theme in these ones. It is supposed to represent the water drops racing on a window, and they drop onto a silhouette, which can be a castle or anything here. Can you imagine? These are abstract pieces. I think the colors are extremely chaotic on this one as well, but they also have a matching color palette with the purples and yellows, and I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching this. I'm really sorry for being so shy. Now this is the Q&A, so we will be showing actually the pieces in the back. We're in the studio, and we can show a closer look on the paintings. So does anybody have any questions? It would be nice.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, both of you, Irina and Ash, thank you. I will kind of be looking at the chat and seeing if there are any questions that come up in the chat. Our guests, if you would like to, feel free to type your questions to Irina in the chat or turn on your camera and speak to them directly. Yeah, so this is our Q&A session.
Oh, really sorry, we're getting rid of the camera. Our choices about yellow and purples, I'm actually not sure about this one. I think it's because of the color contrast and it adds a nice feeling. Čia paklausė, kodėl tu naudoji daug geltonų ir taip mėlynų ir violetinių.
Фиолетовый, не знаю. Čia mano, aš taip, я так вижу этот мир, да, taip matau.
She says that it's mostly because of her style and the way she sees the world. I think it's because this is how she shines light on things. Yeah, she thinks that she really likes the colors and they look quite nice and clean.
Можешь сказать, что йодас, такие танцу, тона, они сумкус. Сумкус.
Also, she says that she thinks that black is a very heavy color, so switching it off to purple makes for a more saturated feel.
И эмоции человека падают, да, он видит, что такое тяжелое.
There's another question in the chat. What is your relationship between your art and nature?
Čia klausia, koks yra tavo santykis tarp gamtos ir tavo dailę. Santykis tarp dailę ir gamtą, nustinus medžius arba upę, vandenį. Gal tu jaunas tu gyveni čia?
Она pasakė, что aš gyvenu prie upių, prie miško, man labai patinka gamta.
She says because she really loves nature and because we live on the countryside, we really get to see some beautiful views. I think that's the biggest inspiration for the trees and the waters. Thank you for the questions. How can people purchase your artwork? Most of our artworks are sold on Saatchi Art. I think some are also sold on Redbubble, a website that happens to do merchandise items. Most of our items are sold on Saatchi Art, so if anybody would be interested to check them out, it would be quite cool. Oh, the fairy tales and the fictions. Sako, kodėl daug yra pasakos ir visokiausių fantastikos ir kodėl tai yra tavo dailiai parodo.
Ну, таких, то есть мы создаем свой мир. Мы gyvensim, мы создаем свой мир. Каждый человек имеет свой.
Kodėl pasakos?
Kodėl pasakos? Nežinau, pasakos. Sначала pasaka, paskui čia gyvenimas bus.
And she thinks because fairy tales reflect life, and they're really fun for the person to read, and they can really inspire people, mostly because of how it reflects life. People can live, and certain fairy tales are stories about others people's livings and life.
Gali pasakyti, что чем daugiau žmogus mato gero visą, ten gero bus,
Tu, kad daugiau mato gero,
daro gero, ten bus ir jo.
Tai mato, kai kiti daro pasakose. She also says that in fairy tales, when people see other people of stories, when people see stories of other people doing awesome things in fairy tales and going to adventure, it inspires people in real life to actually do something good and better for themselves and others. There's also another question. Lindsay, could you read it out? It's
Sorry, what did you say?
Oh, could you read it out because it's a bit uncomfortable with the phone.
Oh, in the chat, I basically just put your website in there. Oh, and then I see a question from, I think, Guadalupe. Do you have any examples of some of her furniture? That's the next question on there.
Oh, that is, I believe, in the second slide. Yes.
Yes.
This is, there are more examples, but most of the photos are quite of bad quality. She used to do artworks on furniture and also murals, but she didn't want to show the murals because she thought they weren't as good quality as she could do now. So these are the pictures that we could show now. Ai, prosta, nu parodytų, kai ant baldų būdavo visokios veiksmai.
There's another question. I don't know if you saw, but the question is, how do you work? I am interested in how your paintings come to life.
Oh, ai, čia paklausė, kaip tu nutapai paveikslus. Kaip te naudoji tenais ant drobės, ant kameros ir, kaip, nežinau.
Сначала это трапез на набежей, используя высокую технику, то есть аж nur kaut ko прощить и используя технику, какую man dabar gribētu.
She says that she mainly uses acrylic on canvas. Actually, all these pieces shown are all acrylic. She uses different techniques and likes to use what she has currently. Most of her pieces use this technique with different types of colors and cups mixed with a bit of water to make them a bit more liquidy. And what she does is she pours them on the painting, almost like water marbling. And she uses different techniques such as blowing with a blower, or maybe sometimes even bags. Plastic bags can make a very interesting texture. Sometimes she lets the paint crack to make a more interesting dynamic texture, and most of the time she uses different layers and paints on them. Most of the backgrounds are the one that she uses the splashing techniques, but sometimes it can be different. For example, the invigorative rain painting, she used cardboard to cover up the silhouette, and she used different paints to dash it across to make it look like a water drop, which I think is pretty interesting. I haven't seen anybody else do it like this.
Another question from Irina is, how long did the painting of the castle and the waves take you to finish?
Čia klausia, kur yra su filmu, kiek laiko užtruko. Ne, kiek laiko, kiek kelias valandas darys, kur su pilim.
Pilim kiek laiko, aš nežinau.
Nežinai, bet maždaug atsimenu, maždaug atsimenu.
Gal 3-4 dieną. Ne visą dieną, daug.
She doesn't remember exactly. This is a bit of an older painting, but she says she did it in a span of like 4 to 5 days and working a few hours a day, maybe a bit more. She doesn't really remember that well. I'm kind of sorry. She says a lot of drying time goes into these paintings because of how much water she uses. Oh, thanks a lot for the person. I didn't want to paint. Čia klausia, kaip išmokai, dailę, kaip tapyti.
Pas mane yra akademija. Čia tu nesakė?
Ai, nesakiau šitus. She used to go to an oral academy. I'm not sure exactly where it is. Žinai, kur yra?
Скажи Урал.
She just says it's Oral Academy. She used to paint a lot back in the day. Na gerai, pirmas tai buvo pirmas tai buvo kaip paprastai užtrunka padaryti paveikslą. Kiek laiko užtrunka padaryti vieną paveikslą, paprastai taip maždaug.
Paprastai, du valandos.
Rimtai valandas.
Paprastai.
Bet tu daug planuoji tikriausiai, ne?
Gal 4 valandas. Gal 4 valandas.
She says that she takes about maybe 4-3 hours to finish a painting, but it's usually big. It's usually bigger paintings and there's a lot of drying time and she plans them out a lot. So if the painting itself is the finished idea and the planned idea, so it doesn't take as long as good for without going into the painting with no ideas. So it usually takes 4-3 hours to finish a painting, not considering drying time. There was another question. What advice would you give to art students? Tai ką tu pasakytum dailininkams, kurie mokinasi?
Mokinasi?
Patarimų pasakyti.
Aš pasakysiu, чтобы не klausau savęs.
Neklauso savęs?
Ne, save klauso.
Savęs klauso.
Daugiau klauso savęs. Daugiau klauso, ko nori.
Her advice to art students is that people should listen to themselves and what they want with their artworks, to go for their own style and to be whatever they want, and they shouldn't be restricted by anybody else's wishes. There was also another question.
Еще техника. Когда стадий, что технику нужно выучить. Техника. И после, когда гера техника, жмогу сгали жесть. Жесть. Kaip sakyti, jazz. Kaip jazz. Когда tu professional jazz, tu žaidži.
She also says that when you're starting out, you should learn the basics and the fundamentals of drawing so that then you can play with them and break up the rules just like you do with jazz. It's a pretty interesting comparison. She thinks that you should definitely learn the fundamentals of art and such things, like color theory, and then break the rules in your own way, which I think is quite interesting. Was there any more questions?
There are a couple more questions in the chat. This one is from Anonymous, I think. How long have you been working as a painter?
Čia klausia, kiek laiko tu dirbai kaip dailininkas, kaip tapymą, kiek laiko tu tapėjai?
Gyvenime? Aš visada,
Taip, bet maždaug kiek laiko tu tapėjai?
Visą gyvenimą.
She doesn't know exact years because she's been painting all her life, so I'm not sure how to answer that one. Any more questions?
Просто скажи, что dabar aš tik noriu tapyti dabar, 3 metai, tik darysiu paveikslą.
She also says that for now she's planning to only paint on canvas for a few years, so this is probably gonna be her new hobby.
There's a question from Guadalupe. I don't know if you saw that she asked, do you plan on trying new techniques or other forms of art?
Čia klausia, ar galvojai išbandyti kitokius dailės, pavyzdžiui, su pirštukais, kaip mano kažkas piešia, arba kitokius, kažkokios mechanic techniques, arba kitokius dailiaus.
Tu pasakyk, что mes su tavim visada taip žaidžiam kasdien. Aš начинаю, paskui tu, paskui aš ant popierio.
Bet, klausia, ar tu planuoji kada nors naudoti kitokius technikos vietoj to, nu, ne tapinas, bet kitokie dalykai.
Ne, tai aš darysiu, mes darysim ir kitokią techniką.
Bet kokia?
Nu, vat, su...
She says that she also does a lot of pencil drawing and plans to do a bit more of that, but she mainly is sticking to this kind of style for now.
У меня есть немного в Инстаграме,
Oh, she also says that she has different types of drawings on her Instagram. I believe she has a few with pencil and maybe crayons, I'm not sure. Oh, she also wanted to mention that now, do you have any paintings inspired you? Taigi, pirmas šis, do you have any paintings inspired? Ar matei kitokius dailės kūrinius, nuo kurių tu, turėjai kokią nors idėją? Taip iš kitos dailės, iš kitų dailininkų, kitų nors paveikslų, taip kitų žmonių paveikslų.
Gali pasakyti, что mes visi žiūrim tie paveikslai, dailininkus ir bijom idėją, imsim pas,
Taip. Bet ar turi kokią specifinį, kažkokį vieną paveikslą, iš kurio tu turėjai idėją?
Kitą
Nelabai, neatsimenu tai vieną. She says that she doesn't...
Žinai, man patinka Leonardo da Vinci, čia mano toks.
She says that she thinks that inspiration comes from a lot of different sources, but she doesn't have any specific paintings in mind that she took inspiration from. And she also mentioned that she really likes Leonardo da Vinci's artworks, which I think is pretty cool. Is there any more questions on this?
That's all the questions in the chat for now. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to keep sending those in.
I also wanted to mention that she's working on an art collection, which has a theme. The theme is emotions and the kind of tier between like very low, sad emotions and between appreciation and adore. So she wanted to mention that she will be working on more paintings that are themed by this. And so if there's not any more questions, we wanted to show you the paintings that are behind us. I'm not sure if you can see it, but if you could give us a second. So we're in the studio and the lighting is a bit off, but you can see them live here. Good for you if you actually remember the names of these. This is the first one on the list, and there's one up there as well. If you would like me to go closer, just tell me. This is also not on the list, but this was small enough for us to bring and display. I actually really like this one. That happens to be it. I'm really thankful for everybody joining in. If there's anything you'd like to ask more, please do.
Thank you for sharing your gallery. It's really cool to see that live. It's very different than just on the slideshow. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. She also wanted to mention that she did this one in half an hour, which is impressive. That's quite fast. I usually take a long time on my own drawings. Also, I wanted to show this one. You can see the textures in the sun, and you can see the correct painting technique that she used. This also is a painting that I really like. All right, so there's, oh, let me see pictures. Oh, thank you so much. Maybe I should go closer. I'm sorry. I think another textured piece would be this one. She used the technique which she splashed the paintings in a straight line. I believe she did it over cardboard so she could get the silhouette of a castle, I believe. I'm not sure if there's any more paintings with interesting texturing. The biggest texture is probably on this painting. And there's also pretty cool textures on the Rain in Paris painting, which has this marbling. And also there's different types of splotches here. So if nobody has any more questions or something to say, I think we'll end it here.
Thank you so much, Irina and Pash. Such a privilege to be able to see your work, and I'm really thankful that it was such a treat to be able to see the work live. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much everyone for attending. Just a reminder that next week we'll have a group exhibition, and we have over 30 artists who will be participating, including Irina. And so we hope you all can join. It'll be at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time next week on May 1st. So thank you all for coming, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend.